Hi class, we're doing section 9.4, which is called decision and conclusion today. We intentionally have skipped 9.3 and 9.2. I'm rolling those into these other sections, so it will work just fine. I have the hypothesis testing procedure listed on this notes sheet again. We learned in section 9.1 how to write our hypothesis statements with the claim indicated. And we're remembering that your HO will have the equal sign. These two parts right here, we will do in the next section, 9.5. What we're focusing on right now in 9.4 is how to write the conclusion. And it's kind of interesting, really, because I almost think of this like an essay. This is your introduction. This is your introductory paragraph. This is your conclusion, your last paragraph. And this is the meat of your essay. This is the important stuff. So we're getting to the important stuff. Not that the others aren't important, but the numbers are going to come in more so in the middle sections. So again, we're working on writing a conclusion or an answer to the question or to the claim. We're going to address the claim. Do we support the claim? Do we agree with the claim? Do we not support the claim? As we're figuring out our decision, it says here, we will decide whether to reject, so that's one option, or fail to reject the null hypothesis. And that is going to be based on the numbers we get from our sample, the statistics that we find. The analysis that we're going to be doing, again, like I said, is in section 9.5. So when we're writing our conclusion, something that's going to help us is in your stats formula packet. And it's on page 2. And I'm looking at my stats formula packet right now. It's on page 2 in the middle, I believe. Page 2, middle column down at the bottom. And it looks like this table right here. I've just copied and pasted it in here. Couple things we want to remember. When we have this decision to reject or fail to reject, it's going to be regarding the null hypothesis. So we'll figure that out and we'll know whether we are going to reject HO, null hypothesis, or fail to reject. Don't reject it. And you'll notice reject and fail to reject are over on the side here of this table. The other thing you'll see on the table along the top of the columns, it says, does the original claim include equality? So you're going to reject or fail to reject your null hypothesis, but you're going to write your conclusion about the claim. Think of it this way. There is a statement made. There is a claim made. You are addressing that claim in words. You're coming up with a conclusion at the end about what claim was, about the claim that was made. And this table will help a lot. There's two formats that can happen. You can have your claim in the alternative hypothesis, which that's why I had you write that word claim next to it so you'll remember where it is. Or you could have your claim in your null hypothesis. This situation is probably more common. I shouldn't even say probably. This situation is more common because this is the only situation where you're able to support your claim. And you'll see this when we start looking at the wording. This situation can occur, but you'll notice the wording does not say support the claim. You can just reject it or not reject it. And I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, so let's look at this little table. The first thing I want you to notice, you're going to look at either reject or fail to reject on the side. And then up at the top, it will ask the question, does the original claim include an equal sign? Well, the equal signs are up here, right? The equal signs are in the null hypothesis. So it's basically asking, is the claim in HO or is the claim in H1? We've written these here. So let's look at this situation first. If I had this situation right here, and I said we're going to reject HO, that's basically meaning we're getting rid of HO. We're rejecting it, which means we're accepting the claim. Let's look at how we would write that. So if I look, this one I said we're rejecting. So we're looking at that row of the table. And then the claim is in H1. So does the claim have an equals? No, it wouldn't have an equals here. So we're looking at the overlap right here, and we would say there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that, and then it says dot, dot, dot. You'll write what the claim is in there. And it's kind of funny because the first time I taught statistics, I just said dot, 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 write in the claim. So a lot of my students were just putting dot, dot, dot. You want to write in support the claim that the average age is greater than 20, or support the claim that the average cost is less than 10,000, or whatever it might be. So make sure you write that in there. The other thing that people say sometimes is they'll want to put the word enough. There is enough evidence. It's not about just the amount of the evidence. It's about the quality of that evidence. What does that evidence tell us? What does that data tell us? So it's not just the amount, it's what the data is itself. Okay, let me clear off my little table, and then we're going to look at this next one. And let's do another reject. Okay, so if we were to reject, and we're looking at this situation. So now I say, I'm still looking at reject, so I'm looking at this row of the table. And then the claim is up here with the equals. So does the original claim include equality? Yes. So we would say there is sufficient evidence. I'm just going to abbreviate that. To warrant rejection. Of the claim. And the other thing I should have done, if we're rejecting that claim, that means we're getting rid of it. We're rejecting it, which would mean we're going with this. We're going with the alternative hypothesis. Okay, we're going to practice more of these. I just wanted to do a couple of examples here. Something else I want to show you, and let me just clear this off a little bit. This situation is very similar to our legal process here in America. The idea of you're innocent until proven guilty. The default is innocent. You have to have the evidence to show that someone is guilty. And you think about it, a lawyer is claiming, or a prosecutor is claiming that someone is guilty, and they're claiming that they're not guilty. So here, let's just put, it's like a trial. And I've been on jury duty twice, but recently I was on jury duty last winter 2019. Okay, and as I was sitting there, you really notice the similarities to hypothesis testing. Not guilty is your null hypothesis. Guilty is your alternative hypothesis. Your burden of proof is on the alternative hypothesis. Your default here, innocent until proven guilty, your default is your HO. So here, if you have sufficient evidence, you would support the claim that the client is guilty. If you do not have sufficient evidence, then you would say they're not guilty. Something I want you to notice, we don't say they're innocent. We can't say that they're innocent. We can just say we don't have evidence to show they're guilty. And that is what is happening in our hypothesis testing. The semantics, the detail of it, it's a little tricky to get your mind around sometimes. The more you talk about it, the more you do examples, the more comfortable you're going to get with it. And this table really, really helps. Okay, let me clear this off. I was just looking at my notes too. One more thing. Sometimes people will talk about, especially when they do their stats project, they'll use the word proof or they'll use the word prove. And you'll notice it says support or does not support. It doesn't say prove, because you're getting this conclusion based on sample data or sample statistics. Your result is based on that. A proof would show that something is always true. You have to consider all possibilities. So you think about it, that's why you could have maybe one sample leading to one conclusion and another sample leading to another conclusion. So our study would tell us there's evidence to support the claim. We wouldn't use the word prove. Okay, so we're going to take the same examples that we did where we were learning to write our hypothesis statements. And now I added reject or fail to reject. And usually the thing that bothers students is they say, where did you get that? Where did I get it? I just randomly picked it so that you could have practice with both. Okay. Where will you get it in the future? Those steps at the beginning here. These steps right here, 2 and 3, we're going to find something called a test statistic. We're going to find its p-value. And then based on that, if the p-value is less than alpha, we're going to reject. If it's greater than alpha, we're going to fail to reject. So this reject or fail to reject will come from that step 3 that we're going to learn in the next section. So right now, I just picked it so that we could have a decision, so that we could write our conclusion. All right, so let's do these. When we look at these, remember, this one said test the claim that the average cost of a used car is more than $3,500. And when we set this up, we have the more than $3,500. And then you can either have an equals here, or you might have had less than or equal to here. Either of those are okay. So we want to write the conclusion. This is our new part, right? The conclusion. And we have our HO, we have our H1, and it says reject H1 or HO, excuse me. So if we're rejecting our HO, that means we're getting rid of that, which means we're left with this, which is telling us, based on our data, the average cost of a used car is more than $3,500. And you know what I realized? I think I had 10,000. I think I adjusted this problem and I didn't adjust it on this copy. So yours may have something slightly different, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just realizing that now. When we look at this, it says reject HO. We rejected HO. Let's write our conclusion. So I'm going to look at this little table. Up here it says, does the original claim include equality? Okay, let's look at the original claim. Does the original claim have an equal sign? And I'm just looking at my other guy here. Does the original claim have an equal sign? Well, here's my claim. Is there an equal there? No. So no to that. So we're looking at this column right here. And then it says reject. And if we're going to reject, we're looking at there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that ... So I'm going to say there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that. And then what I usually do is I go back to the wording, and the wording says the average cost of a used car is more than $3,500. The average cost of a used car is more than, it takes a few minutes, $3,500. And like I said, I realized I adjusted this problem on the OneNote sheet and I forgot to change it on this one. So if you have the 10,000 on there, just adjust it for this one. And again, I got this by choosing it. We will get it based on numbers when we move to the next section. Okay, next one. Test the claim that the mean number of hours that a college student studies per week is not 10. All right. So we're looking at this. It says fail to reject. We're not rejecting that. We're keeping that. So it looks like it is equal to 10. Let's find our conclusion. We have a fail to reject, and our claim does not have an equals. So we'll go up here. Let me start with my table again. Does the original claim include equality? The original claim, I can get back there. The original claim right here does not have an equals. So we'll say no. And this one was a fail to reject. So we're going across here. There is not sufficient evidence to support the original claim. There is not sufficient evidence to support original claim that the mean number, this is a long one, of hours is not 10. We're basically saying it is 10. It would be somewhere in this middle area. It's not significantly different than 10. Okay, next one. Test the claim that college students spend 25% of their income on entertainment. So notice your claim is up here this time. These are a little bit different. So our claim does have an equals, and we're going to reject. So we're going to go up here. Our claim does have an equals. So we're looking at the yes, and we're rejecting. So it's this section right here. There is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim. And again, if we're rejecting, we're throwing that out. When we write our conclusion, it's about our claim. So we will say there is, I want to do my wording exactly. Sometimes I'll paraphrase and it messes people up. There is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim. There is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection. Notice it doesn't say support or not support. To warrant rejection of the claim that college students spend 25% of their income on entertainment. Again, we go back here. College students spend 25% of their, okay? I'll paraphrase. College students spend 25% of income on entertainment. Okay. When I grade these, a lot of times what I'll do is I look for kind of key phrases like sufficient evidence to warrant rejection or sufficient evidence to support the claim. That helps me. In the beginning, though, it's really good for you to write it all out. I know it's a little time consuming, but it also helps you figure out what you just did. Remember at the beginning, I said there's a lot of steps, and a lot of times you get into the steps, but you lose the big picture. This kind of brings it all together. Why did we do this hypothesis test? What did we find out? Okay, next one. This was the majority. Remember we said majority is over half. So the majority of the class earned a passing grade on the last test. So that's our claim. It says fail to reject. Well, if we're not rejecting it, we're keeping it. So it looks like we're not going to support our claim. Fail to reject, claim does not have an equals. We'll go up here. Fail to reject. Does the original claim have an equals? No. So we're looking at this part. There is not sufficient evidence to support the claim that ... There is not sufficient evidence to support the claim that, and then look at your claim. The majority of the class earned a passing grade. I'm just going to say pass last test. Okay. So did the class do well on the last test based on this situation? The majority of the class did not earn a passing grade on the last test. So no. And this is just an example, thankfully. That was not our last test. Okay, last one here. Test the claim that the mean age of LMC students is greater than or equal to 20. You may have had here, instead of an equal to 20, you may have had a greater than or equal to 20. Either of those symbols are okay. So on this one, we're rejecting. So if we're rejecting, we're crossing that out. So it looks like the average age is less than 20. Let's make sure we have our wording right. Notice your claim is with the equals in HO. So your claim does have an equals, and we're going to reject. So if we go back over here, your claim, does the original claim have an equals? Yes. We were rejecting, right? I don't remember now. Reject. We were rejecting. So here would be the overlap, and we have there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim. So we're going to say there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim. Excuse me. And what's the claim? That the mean age is greater than or equal to 20. Okay, I paraphrased it. So when I'm grading these, yes, you need to write out this whole thing. I can look at this, though, and know warrant rejection of the claim is important, or not support the claim. I can kind of see those key things. Sufficient evidence to warrant rejection, not support the claim. Support the claim. Warrant rejection. Okay. So when we look at these, this wording here, the key is this table. And you know you're allowed to use your stats formula packet on the test. When people come into the lab to get help, actually pre-COVID, when people would come in, sometimes they weren't aware of this formula packet. And this wording of the conclusion in there will make a big difference. And what will happen after you use it a little bit, you're going to get used to those statements, and maybe you won't need to rely on it as much. You'll find that you've almost memorized it without trying. But in the beginning, it's a huge help. Other things that will help that I've been building in there, write the word claim. Write that word next to the claim, because that's going to help you when you write your conclusion. And again, these reject and fail to reject, right now, I'm just giving you those. Next section, we're going to learn how to find those. So we have that to look forward to. We get to pull it all together in the next section. So in 9.5, we're going to be learning about finding the test statistic, finding the p-value, and then using that p-value to decide whether to reject or fail to reject. So you can go ahead and start on your MyOpenMath work for 9.5. When you get ready to do that, it's a little heavier. So make sure you've allotted some time and you have your calculator and you're ready to focus, because that is a little bit more rigorous section. Have a good rest of your day.